Good morning. I'm Gina Spagnola, President and CEO of the Galveston Regional Chamber of Commerce, and thank you for joining us this morning at Work Galveston County Project. Hello to all of you who are live streaming on I-45 now, and welcome to all of you that are joining us here at the beautiful San Luis Resort. It is my honor to introduce to you Mayor Craig Brown. Thank you for being here, Mayor.
Thank you, Gina. So happy to be here this morning and to welcome everybody from the city of Galveston to this workforce symposium. About a month and a half ago, Gina and I were visiting, and we were talking about the crisis and the concerns that we've gone through, all of us gone through with the pandemic and the storms and our winter storm. And we started to talk about the crisis that really is impacting so many people today, and that is the workforce crisis. We talked about the only way to solve this is to develop a partnership with all of those entities in the community to work together to solve this concern. And so on behalf of the city, I wanted to say we're happy to partner with the Chamber of Commerce, looking forward to doing whatever we can to help solve this problem that we're presented with today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor. And now I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Miles Shelton. Dr. Shelton has done a phenomenal job. A lot of our workforce development committee is here with us today. This has been a project in the works since 2012, I think, and I think you've chaired it since 2012. So thank you for your tireless work, and thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. Welcome to those in the audience as well as those online. We're glad to see you this morning in person as well. We'll be introducing everybody here in a minute. But as Gina said, our workforce is very important to the success of our economy, to this community, to this region. And it's about having trained workers, the right kinds of workers in the right places at the right time, paid a fair wage. And so that's what we're here to discuss this morning. It is a roundtable, it's an open discussion, and we certainly invite everybody here to participate as well as those online. So with that, Gina, why don't you tell us more about Work Galveston?
Well, the Work Galveston project will be in two phases, and I'm going to ask thank you, Mayor. I know that you've got to go. You've got lots of great work to do, so thank you so much. He's going to rush on out, but thank you. I will say that when we did talk, Mayor Brown said, behind this 100%, let us know what we can do to work together. And I'll tell you too, this is a county project. It's important to sell our region and to promote our region, and you'll see when we introduce our panel that we have Mayor Pro Tem Hank Doogie here too. So, and I just keep talking and you have to go. So goodbye. Thank you so much. This first phase, like we said, and I'll have you come over here and help me with this, but we're going to have all the answers today. But what we're going to do, we've conducted lots of surveys with our membership. Aaron Cox has joined us today, my great friend from the Texas Association of Business. He's done multiple surveys across Texas. This first phase is really a product of those survey results and sort of barriers. We've identified barriers in the workforce. So we'll do that, and then phase two, which will most likely, we want to get people to work now in the summer. Phase two will continue to work monthly on, and we hope to present a portfolio, if you will, of our county. What do we look like as a region to get people from other states here to live here and to work here? So that'll be phase two coming to you soon. So now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Dr. Biggs Rathburn. Thank you, Dr. Rathburn, for being here.
Always. Thank you, Gina. Thank you, Miles, for all your work with this. And I know everybody's schedule is tight, so we're going to get started. Miles, if I'd ask you to take a seat at the head table. And I am. And we have an excellent panel here this morning to share their ideas. We're here today not necessarily to identify what the problem is. I think we all know what the problem is, but to find solutions for it. I was riding in this morning and listening to the radio, and Chili's came on with an ad. Chili's. Kelly. All right. They are wanting to hire 10,000 people. That was their announcement, and they're willing to pay incentives for signing on. They're willing to provide tuition, Miles, all the way through the associate's degree. They're willing to provide a plethora of different kinds of incentives to get people to work at Chili's. And I enjoy Chili's like the next man. But if that's happening there, think about the impact that's having across our environment. So to kick us off this morning, I want to let the panel introduce themselves to you, and I'm going to give them 30 seconds each to answer one question. And that one question is, what do you think is a major barrier we're experiencing today as we come out of the pandemic to meeting the workforce needs? And we'll start with Miles, and then we'll work around.
Biggs, thank you. There are so many issues today. And I would just simply say that for the first time, even at Galveston College, we have more vacancies today that are harder to fill than in my entire tenure at the college. And some of it is related to affordable housing here on the island in commuting distance. Some of it is related to wages. Some of it is related to the scarcity of employees and being able to attract new employees. So it's a complex problem, not easily solved.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm going to pick on Hank next to us. Workforce is a problem that goes across city lines, across county lines. Thank you, Councilman Hank from League City. What do you think is a major barrier we're facing?
I think one of the major barriers is people are still largely afraid of COVID-19. We have a segment of our population, we imagine between 15 and 20%, who are afraid to get back to work and to get back in the public. So when you have that large of a group that is fearful, it's hard to kind of return to normal. So there's a lot of hurdles we're going to have to overcome, I think, to get people back in the workplace.
Thank you. Thank you. Marie, introduce yourself and tell us what you think is a major barrier.
Hi, Marie Robb, City Council, District 6. To echo what Miles said, there are so many barriers right now. And what's intriguing is it's at every level, from professional positions on down. I think on the lower side, we have the issue of unemployment, perhaps being a higher pay than someone who was on the low end of the spectrum. And then at the high end of the spectrum, people became very used to working at home. And now when, you know, my husband, I know, is looking for accountants, and the request that people are making, well, I want to be able to work at home 3 days, and I want to be able to do this, and I want to. People have gotten into a mode of, well, I don't have to go into work. I can do it from home. And I've been someone who has always worked out of my house, and some people do it well, but a lot of people don't really do it well. And I think we just need to get people motivated to go back to work.
Thank you. And please introduce yourself. Come on around.
Howdy, Jeff English, Texas A&M Galveston Career Services. And I think one of the issues that needs to be discussed more is how mental health has been deteriorating since COVID-19 started. Especially being on the education side of things, I've seen it myself, and students, staying inside more so, doing online classes. It was needed, but at the same time, we have to consider the fact that that is a contributing factor to what we're going to be talking about today as well. And not just students, but also citizens within our city and county.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent. Please.
Good morning. Sherry Rooks. I'm with Ball High. I teach hospitality, so I'm a teacher for the students. And I'm just going to piggyback off what you said. It is a lot of right now the mental health. But I think right now also what we're seeing is that hospitality and the education of it needs to be deemed of importance. And without that being done, it's leaving quite a need.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Jennifer Bridgeford. I'm the Career Office Manager at the Workforce Solutions Office in Texas City. I think one of the barriers that we're seeing is the lack of knowledge that our community knows of the resources out there to help. For instance, I did a little bit of research on the number of job seekers that we have registered at workintexas.com for the hospitality industry is over 2,000. We only have 170 job postings for those people in Work in Texas right now. So that right there is a huge need for the buy-in of the businesses and the employers to know the resources that we have that we can help to fill these positions and match quality candidates to their job postings.
Maybe I'll call Chili's, huh?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Terry Barber. I'm the business consultant at Workforce Solutions, covering the Galveston County region, and I will be called in Chili's. Thank you very much. But one of the additional things, in addition to what everybody else has said, the reasons that people are hesitant to go back to work is childcare. With our schools being closed or not all fully open, working moms are having the difficulties of figuring out what they're going to do with their children. And while, again, an underutilized resource at the Workforce Solutions is child care assistance, it's still a need that needs to be addressed and brought to the forefront.
May I ask you, is it both cost of childcare and availability?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll come over here. Again, what do you think is a major barrier facing us in filling these jobs that are out there?
Please move the mic, y'all just share that one so we can hear you clearly. Thank you.
I'm Amy Music. I'm the Assistant Director of Smart Family Literacy, and we host the Galveston County Child Care Directors Group. So I'm also representing that sector, and I'm going to agree that childcare is a big issue. COVID hit that industry really hard. The centers that we have, some have failed, some will continue to struggle.
Thank you. Superintendent, thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Jerry Gibson, Superintendent of Schools, Galveston Independent School District. I think from my standpoint, which is probably a little bit different, we hear about the tourism coming back to Galveston kind of reopening and everything. I didn't realize there was as big of a shortfall until about a week ago for our restaurants, let's just say. So knowledge for me to get word to some of my students at Ball High School, sophomores, juniors, and seniors who are looking for summer jobs, which could not help necessarily long-term, but it could help an immediate impact for this summer.
Excellent.
Hello,
Kelly.
Good morning. Kelly Deshawn from the Galveston Island Park Board of Trustees. We're responsible for tourism promotion on the island. We're about a staff of 115, and this summer we staff up seasonally to about 250. So we've been filling a gap for a long time of seasonal. And I think for a lot of us, we have some seasonal demands that make it difficult for recruitment because you're not offering always full-time jobs. In that same breath, and following on Dr. Gibson, I think there's a lot of opportunities with Texas A&M, with the community college here on the island, with Ball High itself, to create a pipeline. And we in the industry have also not done a fabulous job of delineating all the wonderful opportunities that exist in tourism. By no means is it just pot watchers and bed makers. We've got accountants, we've got mechanics, we've got HVAC techs, we've got high-paid salaries. So I think we've had a perfect storm for a long time, and COVID simply brought to the front some inherent struggles that we have as a tourism economy.
Excellent point. Thank you. Sir.
Yes. Hi, good morning. Willis Gandhi with Texas Coast Hotels. The challenges we're seeing is with not too many restrictions on where you can convert your house to a short-term rental is driving the housing market up. The appraisal values are high and causing people to just sell their house and move because the offer is too good, and is causing a decrease in the working population down here.
Excellent point. Thank you.
My name is James Clark. I'm the president of the Galveston chapter of the Texas Restaurant Association, as well as a business owner of Mosquito Cafe and Patty Cakes Bakery here on the island. The biggest barrier that I see that has not already been discussed amongst the panel here is immigration reform. I feel like we need to address that concern because, as we can see, we have a lot of visitors that come into the island and want to work here. For example, the J-1 visa students and the H-2B visas as well. I think that's something that we need to really address because that is a very integral part of our workforce. And we're definitely feeling the effects of that right now.
Thank you.
The other thing too, just real quick, just to touch on what Workforce Solutions, Ms. Terry, I think was saying, I think the latest estimate I saw was about 55% of working women are out of work right now because of childcare. So that's a huge percentage of folks. That's a huge piece. And then the other item I wanted to bring up was education is huge. making sure that everyone that is out of work is educated on what they have available to them, that they can go back to work while still receiving unemployment benefits, and that they can actually truly benefit from the situation, which in turn will help support the businesses as well.
Thank you. Mr. Cox, thank you for coming down here, Senior Vice President of our chamber for the state of Texas, Texas Association of Business. Sir, thank you for being here.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. And good morning, everyone. I'm Aaron Cox with the Texas Association of Business. I think that everyone around the table is correct. It is a very convoluted, difficult problem. But as we talk about short-term fixes in our openings here, I think it boils down to a couple of major ones that we can work on in the short term. One of those being the immigration issue. It's a big issue, a long issue, but there are some short-term fixes that we certainly could have. The second is the unemployment issue. That is a huge one. And as we go on today, I'll share with you all a little feedback that we've been getting from businesses and looking around in our state and the nation relative to unemployment insurance and the extra federal stipend that I think will have a huge impact on our short-term success here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Paige, welcome to the community.
Thank you.
Please.
Yes, good morning. My name is Paige Michelle. I'm the president of the Texas City Lamarck Chamber of Commerce. And everybody has talked about all the many facets that it's a very complex issue. And I think if I needed to name one issue, it's dollars. Basically, at the root of all this is dollars, the dollars that are needed by employers to compete with unemployment benefits, the dollars that are needed by businesses to get supplies. Supply chain impacts are huge. The dollars that are going to be passed along to consumers because costs will have to go up. And so who has the dollars and where are the dollars going? That's a big thing we need to talk about.
Great. Thank you. Gina, if I might, I want to take one quick minute to take an opportunity to introduce our chairman of the board, Terrell Lynn, if you could step up here 1 second. And yes, thank you for being here. The issues that we're talking about this morning are not new to the Chamber of Commerce. I could look across these issues that we're going to go through and tell you that 30 years ago, when I first started working with this chamber, those same issues were on the wall. So this isn't new, and this chamber's focus on these issues is not new today. But we have a more acute situation today that we've probably had in decades to deal with a short-term issue. But Terrell, thank you for being here. A word of welcome, please.
Oh, thank you. I agree with everything that y'all are saying. It's not only that. I'm an insurance agent, and I'm not having all the issues of getting somebody to work. It's the companies and them working at home and them not doing the same type of service that we're used to having and holding on the phone for 30 to 45 minutes just to get one answer so that you can tell your client what they need to know. It is affecting all areas and every single way. So everything that you've stated, I totally agree with all of that, but it even goes even further than that. So thank you so much for being a part of this, because we do need to get some resolutions. We do need to solve these issues because it's affecting our whole, it's even affecting, what I'm trying to say, our own well-being of who we are in our personal lives and generating all the way to our family. So we've got to work hard to solve this issue.
Thank you. Thank you. The mission of the Galveston Area Chamber of Commerce is to advocate for business, and that's what we're here to do this morning. Miles, thank you for your great work with the Workforce Development Committee. You've identified 5 different areas for us to discuss to find solutions, short-term and hopefully long-term and systemic solutions to the issues of providing a talented and trained workforce for our community to continue to grow. And we're going to start this process right now. We have a series of volunteers up here. They're going to try to get down every idea that you might have for addressing some of these issues. And what we'll do right now is we're going to start with transportation. What kind of issues and what kind of solutions do you see for dealing with the transportation issue? And I'm going to pick on Hank and Paige to begin with, because workforce is not something that happens in one community. We know that people migrate and they come from various communities. People from the island work in the plants. People from League City work at UTMB. Talk to me about solutions for dealing with the transportation challenge of getting the workforce to where it needs to be. Start with you, Paige, please.
Sure. Well, public transportation options would be very important to the workers that need to work at jobs down on the island, but may have to, for housing cost reasons, live further north. I know that's not an easy issue, but that's definitely one.
Hank?
Yes, sir. And I didn't introduce myself last time, so
Yes.
I'll take that opportunity now. For those who don't know me, my name is Hank Doogie, and I am the Mayor Pro Tem in League City. I'm a business owner, and I also chair the Galveston County COVID-19 Business Task Force. So we've been looking at COVID-19 for the past year and how that affects businesses and how we as a community can support businesses. And this is maybe going to be counterintuitive, Bix, but when I hear transportation, I immediately think of housing because people aren't going to travel more than 30 minutes for the entry-level service positions. So really, we need to be providing the housing where the jobs are, getting people connected to those places to live. What we saw during 2020 was really a disruption of a lot of industries and people moving out of where they were, cohabitating with other folks. So I think if we want to get people back to work across the county, across the state, we got to give them, the affordable places to live near their work. So it'll happen over time, but I think the struggle is how do we expedite that process because a lot of businesses are struggling now, and we don't have 6, 9, 12 months to go before we need people back to work. So
Great, thank you. I'll open it up to the rest of the panel. How do we get the employees from where they are right now, prospective employees, to where the jobs are? Ideas.
Well, I'll jump in.
Go ahead.
Having served on the transportation committee of the HGAC and having been on council previously, transportation is, I think, will always be an issue in Texas because people don't like to give up their cars, which therefore makes our roads a lot more congested. I grew up in the Northeast. In the Northeast, public transportation is a way of life. Everything is set up conveniently. But I think we could enhance that with addressing maybe more of our regional transportation, which then brings us to housing. And when you look at housing, we need to look at it more as a region. A perfect example that would be similar to us would be Florida. Barrier Islands, that a resort and whatnot. Well, they focus on setting up housing on the other side of the bridge because the insurance is less, the cost is less, the taxes are less. So we need to look at housing more as a region because I know as long as I can remember, and I've lived here for 25 years, we have been talking about middle income housing, and it's such a relative term. And once you add in the insurance and the taxes, no matter how low you make the house, the cost is double than living on the mainland. So we really do need to approach the workforce housing as a region.
Thank you. Kelly, I want to step over to you a second. One of the acute challenges in the hospitality industry is that it's not an 8-to-5 industry. And a lot of transportation is an 8-to-5 mindset. How do we deal with the transportation industry to support hospitality that starts at 5 o'clock in the morning and runs till 2 o'clock in the morning?
I want to agree with Councilmember Rob. I think we have to look at it regionally, and regional transportation is going to be part of the key. When we pulled Vision Galveston's demographics for the island of Galveston, it said currently 70% of the workforce already commutes into the island. So really that changed our focus from even looking on the island to saying we got to look across the causeway to begin to fill these jobs. For years, we've had a transportation system here on the island that we've been investing in, but we've been investing in, this is from your director of tourism, in the trolley system that's not moving employees.
Right.
We need to be able to get people back and forth from Moody Gardens. We need to be able to get them downtown. And as you said, we need to get them in those off hours as well. And our shifts run from 8 to 3 in the morning or 3 in the morning to 8 o'clock the next morning. It's been a long time since I've done one of those shifts, so I can't remember exactly. But we need to be able to have availability. I worked for 20 years in the Caribbean where the private sector, because we were moving so many people, had buses that we helped to support. Public transportation is not a net gain activity. It's a public service. Right. And we either have to decide as a community and as a region that we're going to invest more in our regional transportation system and moving, because there are island transport buses that move between this Galveston and the mainland already. But as far as I know, they're supporting mostly UTMB faculty that's coming. So if we in the sector, and I'm looking at most of us down here, need employees, then we need to be an active, engaged participant in these conversations at a local and a regional level to demand that there's funding going to public transportation, and then maybe even supplementing that in some cases.
And Bix,
Yes.
if I may.
Sure, Hank.
So I'm thinking about this in terms of, short-term solutions and
Yes.
long-term solutions.
Yeah.
And I think, long-term solutions, absolutely right. Investing in public infrastructure, hike and bike trails where people can even ride their bikes to work.
Agreed.
Trolley or bus or other types of public transportation systems. In the short term, an idea that just came to me. I mean, I own a company that's about 40 to 50 employees throughout the year, and a lot of our employees carpool. So just an idea that came to me is maybe, gas cards for employees that are doing employee carpools. And that might be a short-term solution that employers could, put to practice. So.
Sounds like we have a response.
Yes, speaking of gas cards,
Could you pull the mic over, please?
so Workforce Solutions does have federal funding for work support. So these are individuals that have a job, have a job offer. We can pay for, with a gas card, island bus tokens is something that we use, Connect Transit. If we have that connection from the mainland to the island, in which that we can support that with that, the supportive services for work support, Workforce Solutions can help pay for that. In addition, we have participants that can have ongoing support. So as they get a job, we can't give them, more than a one-time as they are participating in employment and some of the programs for benefits. We can continue to help them with their transportation. Also, work-based learning opportunities, on-the-job training opportunities with employers, that's also supported with transportation assistance. Training is supported with transportation assistance. With all these are federal funded dollars that are available right now to be able to give to individuals so that they could go to work and go to school and learn some of these trades that need to fill these jobs.
Great job, team. I'll come right to you, Paige. Not only did we find a short-term solution, we found a way to pay for it. So we've got to do more of that. Paige, please.
I wanted to mention for transportation rideshare programs, both the commercial ones like Uber and Lyft. And that's something that I know there are groups across the country that have done some creative things and maybe, incubate that industry here and make that available. Even within some employers, they could formulate the rideshare programs, and the gas cards would be great to those that are driving. And I know that everyone is probably aware of the Amazon project that's coming just across the causeway in Lamarck, and they need like 400 people. And they have a very creative approach that they are cultivating these micro businesses of drivers. People will form driver teams, delivery drivers. And so there's going to be a lot of focus on people and vehicles to solve some of these issues.
Great idea. Maybe we could employ that same kind of concept for getting workers to the island. Transportation. What other solutions can we have to get the workers from where they are to where we need them? Other thoughts? Yes.
So kind of touching back on the point that she just provided about a short-term solution, I think it goes back to what I was first bringing up as a barrier is education. We didn't even know that this was an opportunity, and we need to take advantage of people that have this knowledge and being able to share it and market it to the general public so they know, they're aware of it. I think that's one of the biggest focuses, like I was saying, is we need to make sure everyone's educated on what's available to them.
Great point. And I'll take a point here. When we begin to think and wrap this up at the end of the day, this information just doesn't go into a black hole. The Chamber has been committed to taking all these solutions and many more that we know folks will bring to the table and putting those into a plan and beginning to disseminate those across the communities wide so we know what resources are there and, more importantly, how to deploy those resources to meet what we need. Good point. Transportation. Yes, sir.
So I know it's changed over the last couple of years with public transportation to A&M Galveston, Pelican Island, for example, and I'm sure that's because of cost and the amount of students that might not have been taking it. But I think it would be a good idea to eventually, start surveying more how many students might not be able to leave the campus. Because even though a lot of our students do come from the greater Houston area in this area and they have a car, some of them might not see it, worth leaving to work a minimum paid job to pay for gas, that then all that money goes back to gas to go back to work the next day. So I think maybe surveying places like Pelican Island a little bit more so and seeing if our students could utilize public transportation more.
Or if we have a group of workers that are living in the dorms out there, could we put a program together and to transport those folks? Is that feasible?
No, I think that's a good idea.
Okay, great, thank you. Sure, Tara Lynn?
Marie will know this, when we served on council together, because of Ike, we lost our funding from the federal for transportation. And each and every year, we've had to cut back on the buses because of ridership. And the one thing that I've always thought is if we're gonna have a city, which we shouldn't have to drive on this island, we should not. But what's gonna happen is what we need to do is each one of us needs to give up our auto and actually support that bus system so that they're creating the funding and the money. And then all of a sudden, we all will be able to get everywhere we need to go without transportation. But to me, I feel like it needs to come from the top because we can't pay for something that we cannot afford. The taxpayers will not support it. So the only way we're gonna do it is if we're able to give up our cars and support that system. So I just wanted to get that.
Thank you.
Vic,
Well,
Vic,
yes, Miles, please.
Before we leave transportation, let me differentiate two issues that I've heard here.
Yes, sir.
One is transportation on the island, on the island. But the other is when we create so many jobs here on the island is getting a workforce to the island. And so when we talk about investment in transportation as a public service, which is what Kelly was saying, if you think about it, it fits with what the discussions you're hearing from Houston in that area. You know, how do we move people from the airports to downtown? How do we move population to the work here on the island? And that goes to infrastructure, which is a long-term solution. But if we're not committed to building infrastructure to transport people, we're going to continue to have this problem.
Yes. You know, and I'll piggyback on what Carolyn just said. I know with the League City connection that we've had with UTMB, that bus service that was funded partially through HGAC, it's had problems with ridership. We've had problems with ridership on the island. I think it's a matter of getting folks used to being used in public transportation, but also making sure public transportation can work within the boundaries of the schedule that the employees have to work. UTMB works different schedules. The hospitality industry works different schedules. So running buses that just drop people off at 8 o'clock and pick them up at 5 o'clock probably isn't the solution. Just a thought. Well, we will leave transportation.
Can I have just one more point to follow on with what Tara Lynn said? And it does have to be a regional approach. I mean, we know as city council members that the cost of transportation is one of probably second to public safety. So if you see this in other areas of the country where it's a similar situation where there's resort cities relying on the county and the cities work together to be able to share the funding because Galveston could not afford to do it by themselves. But we could afford to be part of a region and a regional approach.
Great, thank you very much. I will say, if you have additional ideas, even folks in the audience here with us or the folks joining us live on 45 Now, if you have ideas reference to transportation, please send them in. We will add to the ideas that have been presented this morning to put this plan together. We're going to make a transition now that's going to be an easy transition. Thank you, Hank, because we're going to talk about workforce housing, both on the permanent side of the house as well as seasonal side of the house. What do we do to support the housing? You made the point earlier that, or somebody, I apologize, that people are going to work where they live in most parts. What do we do to deal with the workforce housing situation? And I want to start with the seasonal issue because that's the proximal issue we're facing right now. And Kelly is sitting here smiling and shaking her head again. So when she does that, she gets picked on again.
Well, yeah, again, I was smiling because this is not an issue that's new. This is something that we've been talking about for years. And now with Corona, it's sparked. And even in the summer of 2019, we import such a large number of J-1 visa holders, which has been a blessing and a salvation for our industry. Thank you.
Kelly, can I pause you for the folks who are listening? You want to explain what a J-1 visa is? Do you understand it?
Sure. They're learn work opportunities that students from around the world have to come and live in the United States and to get a job and to experience the culture and then to go back home and use those skills and that experience. And they've been wonderful additions to our workforce. But because they're here for a short time, housing them has been very difficult. And especially in light of what my colleague from the hotel sector said about the availability of longer term rentals now, with so much of the market turning towards a short-term rental. We've cast our gaze several times over at Texas A&M since they've got housing. And I hear Miles has got some new housing as well. So we've always talked about, is there some kind of synergy between when the students leave and our season starts, although it's a little bit longer. Our season every year, good Lord, are we not till to June already? It pulls out just a little bit more. And March this year felt like summer already, thank goodness. So there's some issues about overlap on there, but there definitely seems to be a concentration of some student housing and a need for some seasonal housing as well.
Thank you. Paige, go ahead, Aaron,
No,
please.
go
No,
ahead.
please, no, please, sir.
And, you know, the other side of that, I love the idea of working with some of the universities locally and using some dormitory space and all those things. But looking at those concepts that are going on, and I know you all are doing some here, but it seems like everybody in America is doing a lot of the mixed use development in their downtown, their entertainment districts. The challenge with those are, of course, you know, and I live in Austin. And so I ask myself the question each morning going into work, who can afford to pay $1 million for an apartment in Austin, Texas? And I'm starting to learn, it seems like everybody but you. Because as fast as we throw them up in downtown, they're full. But, you know, as we start thinking about that in terms of those folks who have to or who want to live closer, to work closer, what opportunities do we have to develop some housing in those central business districts, in those entertainment districts that they could use and that we can make them affordable? I mean, it's, again, I know it goes to, and here's the Chamber of Commerce guy saying, hey, you know, let's build something that people will perceive at $2 million and only, you know, sell it at, you know, whatever cost. But that's another concept that could come into play to help, particularly with those who are staying in the longer term.
Thank you.
Aaron, can I ask you a question real quick? Can you hear me? Aaron, in your latest survey, thank you so much for doing that. I know that was a lot about helping us here today to get those numbers. Are you, transportation, where is it falling on the list in Texas?
You know, in Texas, transportation is a challenge in virtually every community. And we say that we see it in the urban areas, we see it in the rural areas. And it is a constant question of how do we solve it? I think the focus has been shifted right now because of the pandemic. And so it's become kind of a back burner issue, and it's just, please get us warm bodies. But transportation is not one that's just unique to Galveston County by any stretch.
Thank you. Paige, I want to ask you a question. When we begin to talk about housing, I think about what happens when the plant's going to turn around their construction mode. They bring in thousands of workers that come in for 2 or 3 or 4 months, and then they're gone. Can those strategies be employed to deal with this post-COVID employment environment?
That's a good question, and I think it goes to maybe the seasonal approach. The hotels cater to a lot of the contractors that come in for the turnarounds. And so, I don't know, there's a lot of hotels on the mainland, in addition to the ones, you know, for tourists. There's some more of the economy hotels, so potentially. But for other housing suggestions, I was going to mention public-private partnerships, the 3 Ps. I know that the government agencies, you know the need, identify the need, potentially have funds. You have private developers that will come alongside, and it's not easy. They're very complex projects, but they can be done. And I've seen a few done in Washington County, where I lived for the last 20 years. And it takes a lot of fortitude for the community to come together, that both with your elected officials and your developers. But identifying the need like you're doing right now is just the greatest first step, because when developers see that a community has that vision, they'll go through the tough projects to deliver results.
I'll challenge the group again. Short-term solution, post-COVID employment. What do we need to do about housing? Can we do anything about housing?
So I think the real housing issue in the short term is it takes a period of time to move to a place, get situated, and then gain employment. So I mean, I think in the long term, supply and demand of housing is kind of going to work itself out. And I think the idea of, maybe using some of the hotels who have been hit hard in 2020 to provide some of this, short-term interim housing is a great idea. But I mean, I think the short-term issue is how do we get people to find employment here and then go through the acquiring of housing. And so I guess the question I have is what is our seasonal demand for housing? I don't know if anyone here knows off the top of their head. Is right now, are we at a peak for seasonal demand for housing?
Kelly says no, not yet.
No, the season for us is Memorial Day weekend. And so as soon as that hits, and the schools are officially out, then everything really swings in for 3 months. So I'd say June, July, and half of August. And again, it's that off season for the students. And I wanted to I hope we're going to get to that linkage is, we're talking about importing labor, which is important, but I think within our industry, and I hope we talk about others as well, that cultivating and growing and educating people for the different levels of jobs it needs to be a priority for us as well, is to take advantage of those people that are here, not just those ones that we hope to bring across.
Let me snap our fingers then. We can't produce housing overnight, so let's transition to the targets. Who can we find out in the market right now that we can bring in? Is it students? Is it veterans? Is it special needs individuals? Is it retired individuals? We have a number of targets that Miles and his committee put together, and we've got some ideas up here, but I'll throw it out to the whole group. Where is the low-hanging fruit? Where are those targeted employees right now or potential employees that we need to go and find and attract to the open positions so that we get our economy moving again?
I think the easiest or the biggest group of people that we can get back into the workplace is the folks who left during the pandemic, whether it's for childcare. They couldn't find childcare, either the schools were not in or the daycares weren't in, or folks who were afraid and left. So there's folks who are in our community right now who left the workplace. And I think that's probably the biggest group that we could get back to work the fastest.
Great, thank you.
Go ahead. I think students, I think students are key. I know my first job, I was a lifeguard and worked my way up to social director, and it was a great experience. Working in a resort hotel and getting to meet so many cool people. But students, we're blessed because we have Texas A&M, we have UTMB, we have Galveston College, we have Ball High, we have O'Connell, and we have the region to pull from. So I think students are key.
Okay.
Can I follow on something? We had a conversation, Dr. Gibson and I, a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things that he asked Ms. Rooks and I was to not just look at summer jobs for students, but define a career path. Don't just give them something that they're going to come and do for the summer, but then identify. And Chief Davis, Beach Patrol works under the park board, and Chief Davis does a great job because if you come back the next year, you make a quarter more every time you work a certain number of hours, and you make a quarter more. And there's really a path. If you get a credentialing, then if you're CPR or something, you get a quarter more, as opposed to just saying, like we do at the gates for the park, $9 an hour to sit in the sun. And so I think, that idea, and the industry has that ability, especially the hotels, even the smaller hotels. Like I said, they have different professional fields within it. And I think we need to do a better job if we're going to engage with the students of not just saying a summer job, but this is a pathway that we can help you with. And even if you're not going to stay in the industry, these are the ways that we can help you to broaden and to grow.
And I agree with that 100%, because where I started was a Marriott Resort Hotel in Philadelphia. And they took that approach. They're like, hey, if you're interested in hotel management, we'll help you through this. We'll help you with college. And I think, because I didn't work seasonally, I worked year round, even though I was going to school, and they yielded to my schedule. I think what you said is brilliant.
And then to tag on with that too, being in career services, my actual title is career service coordinator. So I have students that come in for resume edits, cover letter, mock interviews. And the one thing that I'm experiencing right now as a career counselor is the lack of experience because of COVID-19. There have been so many internships that were canceled, part-time, full-time positions that were canceled because of it. And of course, it's not the student's fault, but it does affect them. So now they're in my office and they're nervous because this is what they're saying. They say, Mr. English, I don't have experience. How am I hireable? I'm like, well, we can work on that. That's fine. But it still affects them and it's not their fault. And I think that's a great idea. Transitioning them into a work like that work experience, not just a part-time experience, but getting them experience on their resume that shows that they can work with the team, they can work with the supervisor, they can show leadership. I think that is brilliant. And I would love to work on something like that.
Can I add to that?
We got a question over here, and then our point over here will come over there.
Yes, so I wanted to mention that, again, resources that a lot of people don't know are available is we have a work-based learning program. This is where employees are paid $10 an hour by Workforce Solutions to work for you. There's no out of cost by the employer for these interns. Galveston Regional Chamber actually participated in this program last year. We actually have two. There's a summer earn and learn which is working with individuals that may have some sort of disability, whether it's a learning or a physical disability. And that is more of the summer seasonal thing, but work-based learning is year round. That is where an intern works for you for 6 to 8 weeks. We pay them $10 an hour and they can learn those skills that can further them into a career path. And again, I just want to say, no out of pocket to the employers. There's a worksite application that's approved. We can give you as many as you want. We just ask that it is a meaningful job where they're going to learn skills and they can go on a career path and possibly go on to supported training by Workforce Solutions to follow that career path. I think Terry wanted to mention something on that as well.
And just to piggyback on what Jennifer is saying, it's a collaboration. And so not only do we need the students, superintendent, but we need work sites for our students to be able to go to work. So we are calling on the employers on the island, off the island, in our region to be to host these students, to give them this on-the-job training. So it's going to take, I hear the word collaboration, I hear the word all of us in this room together working to build up our economy. So I am the contact person if you would like to host a young adult between the ages of 16 to 24. Again, Workforce Solutions pays their salary. It's no cost to you. We got the employer on record. We cover the unemployment insurance. We do it all. We just need a place to place our students. So please reach out to us. It's a wonderful opportunity. We've given Gina.
Tell her story real quick. Really quick.
I'm gonna let
What
you
you did. No, I'll just say it was 30 hours, right?
Mhm.
When you talk about career pathways, Kelly, ironically, the young man, and you met him because you're on our board, had participated in Lemonade Day from kindergarten throughout. Then he went into the Chamber's Maritime Career Pathways, become interested in the maritime industry, then ended up, he's in college, and then he ended up interning with us. That was 30 hours a week that we had them, and it was paid.
At the chamber.
So I would highly encourage you, if you need something immediately and you have people ready to work right now.
And we
And
support
we
them-
need to.
Yeah, and we support them with
We're signed up.
transportation assistance.
Yeah,
So that they can get to and from work. Anything they need for work, if they need scrubs, if they need non-slip shoes for work, we will pay for that. That is work support that we'll pay for these interns. And remember, it does go up to age 24. So it's not just the young ones, it's the young families that we are supporting with this as well.
Darn, I just aged out on that.
I just wanted.
Can I just, how do people get in touch with you? We're getting a lot of feedback on that. Give them your number real quick.
So if you need to contact me, my direct number is 281-770-6768. Terry Barber, Business Consultant, 281-770-6768.
That information will be in our final report for folks too, if you can get it down. Yes, please.
I just wanted to make a point real quick from the child care sector that the number one request from directors right now is hiring, just like every other industry. But I wanted to point out that we often take an approach to childcare as a safe place to put our kids while we're at work. But so much happens in that 0 to 3 age range in brain development, kindergarten readiness, school readiness, that if we're not paying attention to that sector and creating that education pipeline where we're getting people that understand that child development, we're creating bigger gaps in public education, in employability, and all that later on. So I just wanted to sort of refresh that and re-emphasize what's being said in sort of that career pathway.
Thank you. Mr. Cox, do you have something?
Yeah, absolutely. About 3 weeks ago, I was in a meeting in our office, and one of the people there was the general manager of a hotel in Corpus Christi. And so I asked her the question, how did your spring break go? And she said it was awesome. It was the best undercover boss experience I could have ever had, because for part of the day I was lifeguarding, for part of the day I was working in housekeeping, for part of the day I was working in our restaurant. All because they don't have people. I would submit to us, we asked the question, where's the low-hanging fruit? Where are the people that we can get now? Many of them, and I get all of the complexities, but many of them are sitting at home right now, collecting unemployment insurance benefits that are disincentivizing them to going to work. And we have to understand, as societally, as communities, as our state, is not only is that disincentive hurting businesses today and creating an environment where we're closing, we're not opening our full hours, we're leaving jobs blankets, it's hurting the people that are sitting at home. There's no greater reward in the life of anybody in this room even, besides maybe having children and living and doing those kinds of things, but contributing. Yes. And they are losing that. They are losing that opportunity to earn an honest day's pay for an honest day's work. There is a different feeling. There's a different level of maturity that comes, and it grows those people that we want. How many stories do we hear? One of my favorite stories in the world is a chamber member, because all great businesses are chamber members. Y'all remember that?
Can you repeat that, please?
Right. All great businesses are chamber members, or local chamber members. But of a young woman in Central Texas who began as a cashier at Chick-fil-A, and she bought in high school, she worked her butt off, and she went through being a manager, a shift manager, a regional manager, a district manager. And Chick-fil-A Corporation came to her when she was 31 years old and said, you know what? You believe in what we do. We believe in you. This store is yours.
Wow.
She runs Chick-fil-A on 1431 in Cedar Park. So y'all stop by if you're ever there. But it's an awesome story that shows, even with our young people, even with folks who are in their early 20s or their early career, whether they're 20s, 30s, or wherever, if we can do exactly what you all are talking about, get them into employment, understand the benefit of work, buy in, and they can advance and they can move on and they create the path for others. But in terms of low-hanging fruit, I would submit to us that one huge area is sitting at home today collecting unemployment insurance benefits.
Yes, Hank.
Yeah, and just to tag on to that, excellently said. The biggest group, I think, of low-hanging fruit are folks who left and people who are sitting at home and they're collecting unemployment, right? And you said that they're missing out on that sense of purpose that employment offers. They're also missing out on the sense of community that being around other people offers. And it's an education issue, right? Because in the short term, in our minds, I'd much rather be home, sitting on the couch watching Netflix, receiving the unemployment benefits than working at a restaurant or a hotel or working in the service industry, right? But in the long term, it's doing a lot of negative harm. So it's not as simple as just saying, well, these people need to come back to work. I mean, they do, right? But us as community leaders and business owners have to find a way to convince them, hey, we're not just saying come back to work because we need employees. We're saying come back to work because it's better for you, it's better for all of us. So it's that education piece. And how do we get that message out there? I think in the short term, if you've had people leave your company or your industry, make a personal phone call or have someone who is at the supervisor level make personal phone calls to the people who left and say, hey, we miss you. Your work family, your work community misses you and needs you back. But that's the only way we're going to convince them. I mean, it's not a financial thing, right? We can't offer twice what we were paying in the beginning of 2020, maybe we can offer some incentives and return to work bonuses and whatnot. But and we're not. This group sitting here today isn't going to solve the unemployment benefits crisis. We're not going to make the administration change their mind on it, right? So we have to do something at the local level, the personal level, to make that change happen. So
I'm hearing a paradigm shift. The traditional environment for employment is, I'm an employer, you're a potential employee, I need a job done, you need money. And that's not the paradigm I'm hearing right now. The paradigm I'm hearing right now is that we need to be able to talk to the prospective employee about the intrinsic value of work. And that intrinsic value is all the things you mentioned, plus career, future, all those sorts of things that are outside of the paycheck. What it's going to take to get them over the hump to leave watching Netflix on their couch and have them come back to work. And I think it's probably going to be more than just the traditional model we've always used. I'll pay you $10.50 an hour if you'll come and do this for me 40 hours a week. That's not going to cut it right now.
Well, and I think that's an overall shift in employment, period. I mean, when you look across the spectrum at the lists of great places to work, does anybody look at those great companies and best places to work?
Yeah.
How much of that has to do with work?
Very little.
That was my point I was going to make.
Oh.
It's about it's a culture. You're being part of a group that is not just working together, but you're developing friendships and relationships and networking and enjoying it. And it is a career path. You're engaging in that cultural experience first, and then you can enjoy what you're doing. If we're not enjoying what we're doing, then we shouldn't be doing it. And then when you enjoy what you're doing, then you become more and more successful, and then you become more eligible to advance in your career path. And just one point that Melissa Stewart, one of our executive directors, brought up that I thought was important, and this is going back to the targets, is one thing that I don't think any of us are really truly considering as well, is that there's a lot of folks that have passed away from the virus. And there's a lot of people that are still in recovery. So that already is going to be reducing our workforce already. And, there's other complications as well as pay and unemployment and transportation and what have you. But that's something that we need to keep in consideration as well, that we have a reduced amount of folks that are here just due to those circumstances, which also brings back my point about immigration reform. We need to make sure that we get more and more folks to come into this region. And actually, one story that Gina was sharing with me is one of her hometowns in Arkansas was powered by Whirlpool.
Whirlpool and the Keystone Pipeline, but my mother, yeah.
So those major corporations had shut down, and those communities are dying. There's nothing for them to do. So we as a region need to reach out to these other areas, because we do have this big economic driver here. Like I said, not just Galveston, as a region.
It's a region.
So we can try to pull other people and advocate, hey, this is a great place to live. There's a lot of opportunities. Come relocate. And if we develop some kind of way to incentivize relocation or education that we can help them with relocation, then I think the whole region will benefit.
And that's the ultimate goal for phase 2. And Barbara, you'll say hello with Bay Cap. When I spoke to her, and I love Jeff, the president of the GEDP, is here, and I would love to work with them on that just regional profile. What do we look like as a region? That's phase 2. But my friends did reach out, and they're up in Arkansas, and they worked on the Keystone Pipeline, and they're looking to move. Can they move to Galveston? Don't know. They can move in this region. So we want to identify, the housing and what do we look like, and then be able to go out and promote ourselves as a great place to live and to work. Sorry.
No, I was jumping in on you just because I'm anxious to put a different opinion on the table.
Really?
Imagine that. If I look at my own institution and I look at the living wage in Galveston, a significant portion of my frontline staff are not making the living wage. And I would suggest to my 2 colleagues sitting here to my left that they had workers before COVID started that had to have 2 jobs. in order to make a living. So it's nice to feel good about your job. It's nice to have a career path about your job. At the end of the day, people need to have a job, make enough money to make a living,
Yes.
and go home and take care of their family. So I think the opinion that I best subscribe to is the paradigm shift. For a long time, the driver has been the employer. We have major corporations that were hiring people part-time and not paying benefits to them and not offering career paths and making a ton of money. And that needs to stop. We need to realize that society, if you're a business and you're making a ton of money, you need to put back into the system. And you need to help for the transportation. You need to look for the public education opportunities. You need to help with the affordable housing. And until that paradigm shift is going to happen now, because now the employee is king. And we're given all these bonuses and we're asking, and part of that is adjustment, just like you said, a paradigm shift. And so I think more so than laying it off and saying it's easier to sit home and get an extra $300 a week, I sure as hell can't live on $300 extra a week, that we have to take some responsibility for the wages that we've been paying. And I'm 30-year veteran of the hotel and tourism industry, and we're one of the first ones. I'm sorry, gentlemen, I might have just lost my job for that. But that's how I feel intrinsically. And we do make people, we give career opportunities at the park board. We look for dynamic people. We try to make them feel like a family. But the other day at the tourism summit, we stood in front of 300 people and gave a nice award to a bellman and a front desk clerk, I think he was. Both of them had worked for 36 years at Landry's, 36 years. We gave them a nice certificate. Everybody clapped. The VP of Landry's whipped out a $500 check. Everybody got on their feet. You know, money is ultimately what's going to move people. So thank you for allowing me. Sorry to jump on top of you, Gina.
And then I have it's a
Yes.
thought, and I don't know if there's any incentives in place for this already, but I feel like there is a population that isn't really being talked about too, is the homeless population. Is there currently anything in place that is helping them, get out of that situation they're in finding employment and getting back on track to, a better life if that's what they're wanting? I'm not sure if there's anything in place currently within the city or the county, but it's just something I thought I'd bring up.
Thank you.
The Salvation Army.
Yes, go ahead.
That's okay.
The Salvation Army is very committed to that and work pathways. Do they get everyone?
Excellent.
No. But if they walk through their doors and they want to work,
Salvation Army.
they do help them with different programs and
Excellent.
projects. So I'll give you more information on that.
Thank you.
And
Thank
so do
you.
they.
Yes, and we're going to transition after this comment because I want to be cognizant of your time. We've got about 20 minutes left. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. So being the teacher at Ball High and teaching the students here hospitality tourism, as I've been privileged to do for 8 years, I'm going to give you a little inside peek of what that looks like. And Dr. Gibson, kudos to you and what you are bringing to the school district. And I don't just say that because you're my superintendent and I'm sitting here. I truly mean that. Carolyn, what you said about it starting from the top and working down, hospitality and tourism must be considered an important career pathway on this island. And prior to your coming, it had not been. And now that's going to be changing. You're going to see great things happening within Ball High because of that. And I want to thank you for that. Something else I don't know, just to throw it out there, when you're talking about housing and what can be done and things of that nature, most people sitting here at this panel and even probably most people within our audience right now are rather affluent and can afford nice places to live in and enjoy a nice life and don't even maybe remember what it was like to work that entry-level job and try to make ends meet with that job. Affordable housing has to be touched on because you've got a huge marketplace of people working that just aren't where they can afford those, $2,000 a month apartments or $1,500 a month even. I mean, that needs to be addressed. It needs to be looked at realistically with what the people have in these jobs and can afford to live with.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
They've got, going back to who Who are the people?
Yes, I want to go back. The other targets that were identified, thank you, Dr. Sheldon, included veterans, retired individuals, people that are coming back into the workforce
Baby
after the
boomers.
baby boomers, special needs individuals. I watched last night Elon Musk on Saturday Night Live, and says he's on the spectrum, and he's one of the richest men in the world now. But what do we do to reach out to special needs folks? And of course, we mentioned college students. Are there any other targets you'd like to bring up quickly before we move to the others? Yes.
Yeah, so again, I'm always going to talk about the resources because we are Workforce Solutions. So, with special needs individuals, we have vocational rehabilitation services in our offices now. We're closely connected to them, and that's not necessarily somebody that needs help finding a job. It may just be somebody that needs help with an accommodation to do their job, an accommodation to get a promotion within their career field. And so they only work with individuals that are going to lead towards a career path or that need help staying in work or staying in and completing a training program. So there's that. There's also the second chance population, individuals that may have some background issues, and lo and behold, Workforce Solutions offers fidelity bonding for employers. So that's at no cost to the employers as well. So that is something that you can take advantage of. Veteran population, of course, is a priority of service population for Workforce Solutions. Veterans, we have individuals that can help them identify what training and skills that they had in the military that'll transfer to other career fields. And so we'll help them find employment and target to what you guys need as well.
Thank you. Any last comments? To finish this up, I want to take the two last points we were going to talk and merge them together. And it was the concept of incentives that we need to have to bring people back from a short-term perspective, as well as the point you brought up earlier, is marketing. How do we message this? How do we message all the stuff we have and get those out there? So we need short-term solutions, short-term strategies, that incentives that we think will work to do what we need to do, and then how we get those messages out. Committee.
I know with short-term on the education side, I've been talking with Ken Bailey, who's the Director of Career Services at A&M Galveston. And with COVID restrictions, lifting now, we have been talking about having these little mini career fairs on our campus that bring local businesses from the Galveston County and the city of Galveston to our campus, and having just tables set up. And I know that's something we've done in the past, but I do think that those little events help, especially bringing, those owners and representatives from each company out to our campus. I think that can go a long way. But short-term for education, I think that could work.
Gina, you might comment on what you've got planned as it relates to that, or Dr. Gibson.
Yeah.
What we have planned in the short term?
I learned of this last week, and I thought we've got a lot of students that need jobs, summer jobs. I'm thinking of immediate impact. I've heard from some restaurant people that said they can't even get through the week with they just don't have enough on their staff right now with just servers, hostesses, whatever. And I'd be more than willing to host a job fair as early as next week if we can get the business owners there, and we can get some Galveston College students that are going to stay close, Ball High students, A&M Galveston students, and have tables set up and ready to hire people on the spot to help the summer impact. At least that's a short-term solution to what we're about to experience in Galveston this summer, from what I'm understanding.
Michael Woody brought this up, and I thought it was just absolutely brilliant with the CVB. And Aaron, I was going to ask you if our chamber, or the president and CEO in Hawaii was maybe in charge of this. But I saw a Work Hawaii project that was similar to ours. And what they're doing are these camps, and they're incentivizing people to go over into Work Hawaii. Of course, they have housing. There was a bundle of stuff going on, and I know that will be hugely popular because most of that is paid. If you want to work, we will get you here, and you can work in and it was mainly hospitality industry, but there were other jobs there too. You want to talk a little bit about more of those camps? Have you seen those?
I had not seen that one,
Okay.
but I'll call our friends in Hawaii and ask them
I'm
about
willing to
that.
go.
Yeah,
with
we'll
you.
volunteer.
No roadie out there, do a site visit. Absolutely. I had not heard of those. And I lost what we were talking about.
Messaging and incentives. What do we
Messaging
do
and
to,
incentives.
to get the message out, and what incentives is going to get them moving?
In terms of incentives, it's challenging, I think, because, we're asking employers who are already struggling to offer more. What a couple of states have done, and you guys are going to leave out of here and go, send that dude back to Austin. All he's harping on are government benefits. But what several states have done has taken the additional unemployment insurance that folks are receiving and turned that into incentives for going back to work. So for those who are able, going back to work, and after 3 months of employment, getting a $1,200-$1,500 bonus for going back. So now it's more of a retention thing. It's more of getting you through the season. It's not, okay, I show up day one or day two and I get a big lump of cash. And so, at the state level, the chamber, that's something we want to talk about. That's a conversation to have. The other side of that is, not only do we look for those types of incentives, but how do we both incentivize and help some of our small businesses? Because, unemployment insurance is going to get paid, and that's going to go on them. So what amount of, what portion of those dollars may we take and help them to pay the additional taxes? I think as a longer term, though, and now I'm going to call us out as employers, on a longer term, we have to stop looking at applications and resumes as a top line job that someone has held. Every job that we have, there's a set of skills that are required to do that. And we don't get deep enough into the skills that we actually require to hire the right people. So what is it that we want? We don't want a front desk person. We want someone with a great attitude that is, inviting, who can manage a cash drawer and who can do, their essential tasks. And we have to get into that, because I think both in the short term and in the long term, that's what's going to create success for us in matching people to jobs. It's not saying, what have you done in the past? It's really digging into those skills. And there are a couple of partners that we have at TAB that do this kind of work all the time. And I was lamenting to them one afternoon, just kind of regurgitating what our friends in West Texas had told us about unemployment in terms of the oil fields and pipe fitters. And they had all these folks that were unemployed. And, I'm talking to these folks who are looking at it. They said they're unemployed because they're in West Texas. There's still a huge demand for pipe fitters. It's just all in Houston now. And so all those folks who leave there and go there, and it was a matter of making sure, looking who has the skills, where are those people with the skills, and bringing them to you. When you start talking about looking out and marketing, it's going after, the skills that we want. And I think, again, employing those public-private partnerships to get those companies who are looking at this stuff every day and are willing to share with us, because they see it at a much deeper level. That's what they get paid to do. So then they can tell you, if you want to bring in folks to do this type of work, you need to go to Arkansas, or you need to be looking in Michigan, or, wherever, rather than us beating our heads against the wall going, why aren't these kids from League City driving down to work at the hotel?
But if I may comment, because I'm going to tie this back to housing, the paradigm is actually driving new housing. And again, going back to the private public, one, you already have a successful community up in League City that's built to rent. And it's people who come in and they're not sure where they want to live. So they're renting for, I think their average is 3 years. We have one in the West End that's coming in, build to rent. We have over in Santa Fe, where I know there's a lot of people that aren't happy, but that modular home community that's coming into play that could be workforce housing. This would be the time to approach it. It's going to be a nice community. It's going to be gated. It's going to be affordable. So I think the paradigm is pushing part of the housing market. It's just, how do we work together with the people that are willing to come in and present the housing and make it more of a partnership.
I want to bring it back to focus as we finish. We've got a short-term issue. Last week in Houston, they had a job fair. They had about 150 people representing employers at the job fair, and 11 people showed up for the job fair. 11. and that was it that signed in. How do we message this? What I heard is students are concerned that they don't have employability skills. And so they're a little nervous of going out to a job fair or going to an employer to apply for a job. What are we going to do to get those folks off the couches, get past their anxieties, get them to a job fair, or get them to an employer to actually fill out an application? What are we going to do? How do we message that?
Well, I know.
Yes, please, Paige.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Me?
Yes, please.
Well, just a couple things and back to incentives, but touching on what you just asked, you could put a lot of incentives on the list that cost money, like sign-on bonuses and stuff, but some incentives don't actually have to cost money in the form of your company culture, investing in your company culture. And this ties back to what we were talking about earlier. And that's really on the business owners, I'm sorry to say, but they need to be a place where the people want to work. And they know this. This is not a new thing. They're competing. But I wanted to point out that 2 national franchises just opened within the last 3 weeks in Texas City, Lamarck. 2 restaurant big franchises. I won't necessarily name them, but one makes pizzas really quick and one makes subs really quick. And they both, on opening day had like 25, 30 employees. So how did they do it? Well, I talked at length to their managers and they went on and on about the cool things that their company delivers. Like this fast pizza one, they have special programs in place. They actually form teams of employees and they go out and do community service when they're not working. Y'all, that attracts young people. They have a thing where all the tips get pooled, and whenever an employee needs to miss because like their childcare fell through or they needed to get some health care, they could tap into this fund. There was a fund set up for them to take care of needs. I know. And so people, that word spreads to workers and they knew about that. And at the other one, there's something in their company culture. It's super fun and it's from the top down. So I think that all small businesses need to think about that, especially if they're the independents, which we love as the chamber and tourism. We love our unique independent mom and pops. And so you can go online and learn the secrets that all these big corporations are employing and put those in place. But that's an incentive, and maybe get that out online. Maybe someone can invent a Match.com for employers and employees, where they can keep swiping and get a little glimpse of the employer and what are the cool things that they do in their profile. Make an app for it. So that's an answer.
100 years ago, when I lived in Orlando, they had a program at Disney that if you went to work at Disney and just, sweeping the streets, once you were there for a month, you got a year's pass free to go to Disney.
Oh, nice.
And it didn't cost them anything. What about a year's pass to Schlitterbahn for signing up or something like that? We've got to think outside the box. Great ideas.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes.
Touching back on your comment about the necessary skills and that there may not be a little hesitant because they don't think they have the skills. One thing that I use in my own personal business when hiring is I hire for personality because skills can be trained.
Oh, yeah.
And so I always am looking for, I have these tests that I have, in place when I'm interviewing someone, but I'm looking for somebody that is genuinely wants to be there. They're smiling. They want to participate. They want to be a part of a culture. And then when they are part of our culture, we do these fun activities. Like just last week, actually, we did a crawfish boil for everyone. And it's just having fun team building outside of work type of activities that will make people want to be part of something. And it just goes back again to what I was just saying, being part of a culture, being part of something other than just a job. Anybody can be just doing a job, but they need to be part of business. They need to be integrated into what's going on, and they need to be recognized, like you were saying, from the top down, that they are contributing to something greater than just a profitability standpoint.
And we need to message that, not just a job for $12 an hour. Thank you. Last comment here. We'll go over here and then come to Kelly.
So when it comes to messaging, excuse me, we always say that Workforce Solutions is the worst kept secret. As you have learned here today, that we have quite a few incentives, quite a few resources, quite a few tools to help both the employer and the employee. So when it comes to messaging about what we do at Workforce Solutions, we have to do a better job at getting that word out to what we do. And we'll be calling on our chambers to help us get that messaging out. Once we tried the Workforce Wednesdays, when things open back up, looking at my director, we would like to bring that back to the island because, and my director can attest that whenever we're in a meeting, I am fighting for Galveston. It is a different community. It's a different resource. It takes a different mindset than our folks up north in Houston. And so we need to bring the resources to where they're needed here on the island. And so we'll do a better job in making sure that we provide the necessary information to our community, our Galveston Island community, about the resources that are available through Workforce Solutions.
Any last comments?
Well, I wanted to say, I feel like we need a coordinating body, and the chamber is a great coordinating body. And so if we were going to message anything, social media is a great opportunity, but we need some place for people to land to be able then to get to Workforce Solutions, to understand the profile of our community. But if the chamber had a resource page between us as the educational institutions and as the businesses, we need some kind of social media going out, something tight, something sweet, something attractive, that then directs people to a more robust. And between all of the resources that we have, if we coordinate that together, I think we can message just as well as we do for other things.
And understanding that it's different for those identified demographics, right?
Right.
You know, if you're talking about reaching out to boomers and folks who may be taking a retirement job, you know,
It's not on Snapchat.
fail at retirement, but fail at retirement here, right?
Yes.
That's
Don't-
a great
Don't
tagline.
do it in some big city. Don't do it. No, fail at retirement where you can work for 4 hours a day and then go to the beach, or go and have a dinner on the patio.
We've got our new campaign.
For a last comment, Hank, real quick, we've
Yeah.
got 2 minutes left. So this last,
Perfect. I'll just take one of those minutes then.
okay.
So I think the gist of it is Galveston County employers value its employees. So, and we need to, the proof is in the pudding. We need to show it in the way that we pay folks, the way that we treat folks, the way that we train folks. So I think that's the message is, we value the employees here in Galveston County.
Thank you.
And it's so much more than just saying it. We got to show it. And then in terms of what we do, I think the resource database that you were hinting at, we create a landing page website where there's housing, transportation, where jobs are in the county or in Galveston Island, where people can just go to one place, whether an employer or an employee, and get all the information they need, because it's overwhelming. I mean, there's so many different groups up here represented at the table, and it's overwhelming to have to go and try to find each of them. So just one central location, no matter who you are, if you need employees or you need a job, you can go to and get the information you need.
Thank you. Audience, please give this group up here a round of applause. Great job today. For those of you online who joined us, thank you for joining us. I'll turn it back over to Jean.
What I wanted to say is we do have a place, Kelly. What we can do is Lindsay will work on it. It was College Town, Galveston, that has transportation. How do I get around in College Town? We'll just transfer that into Work Galveston County project. We know that working regionally works because our presidents and CEOs were honored to have been appointed by County Judge Henry to work on this COVID task force. Now we'll be transforming into a business task force. Our presidents and CEOs of the chambers work so closely together. Hank was our chair. We quickly transfer into that and begin to collect information regarding our region. That's why every one of them were invited to the table. Paige, thank you, and thank you, dear friend. We know it works. We did promise, and we may run over, and you know what? That's okay. If you need to run, that's fine. But I did want to give all of you an opportunity. If you would just like to quickly say something, did we miss something? And I'm going to walk into the center because that's what I'm supposed to do if you're going to come up and talk. Could you give our scribes a round of applause? That is my chamber staff, who is absolutely incredible. I should say my team. Anyone with some final thoughts? What did we miss? We promise we'll move forward with our task force and with our workforce. You might want to come out here and finish up too. Any questions, thoughts, concerns? We talked a lot about hospitality, y'all, but it's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't really talk about our retailers that are suffering, that couldn't be here because guess what? There's no one to open their store. Anything? Yes, sir. You have to come out here because we have to do what TJ says. Thank you, I-45 now.
First of all, thanks for the opportunity. I'm the director of Workforce Solutions, and I think Terry and Jennifer did a great job. A couple of things. First of all, if you can't get Terry's number or anything, it's worksolutions.com. That's WRK solutions.com. And there's just a ton of things that we can do for you. We don't charge for anything. It's all paid for. Well, it's not free because you all pay taxes. So it's been paid for, so why not use it? And the other thing is we talked about bringing people in here. I think temporary housing in the summer. I'm a Yankee, but I've been in Texas since 1976. But going to school in the north, if I thought that I had housing paid for in the summer and I could work in flip-flops and a short, I'd have been here in a heartbeat. So I think if there's something we could do with that, so maybe we don't have to bring people in from foreign countries. We could bring, well, kind of the north is kind of foreign. But if we could do that, I think that'd be awesome.
Nice point.
Any other, please? David, I'm so happy you're with us. He participates on our COVID task force, and I've only met this dear friend via Zoom. So this morning I just ran over to him and gave him a big old hug. But thank you so much for joining us today, and I'll invite you up here in a second.
Hi, I'm Gloria Green. I have a staffing and recruiting and HR background. I've also worked career services, and so I think what sometimes we forget is we need to ask people, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because oftentimes no one has asked them or they just haven't thought about it. But also I know for myself, I look at companies and I research them and I interview them and I decide, do I want to work for you? So it's not all about sometimes money and what can you offer me, but are you a good fit for me? So thank you for being here. Thank you for Workforce Solutions because I'm going to be calling you. I serve a couple of clients and we're having the same problems. So thank you.
Thank you. David, you want to say, I'll come to you. Can I? Okay.
Good morning. My name is Dave Johnson. I am from League City, member of that chamber. I also chair the League City Turnaround Task Force that deals with COVID. So I've been working with the county effort, and certainly very, very important that we all collaborate together. One of the things that has recently struck me is understanding how we're moving from deep into COVID to we're coming out of it, and we're in a period where we're going back and forth. Hank has pointed out there's still a lot of fear out there. And that just has recently struck me, and I'll just be parochial. I noticed in my church, we have great online services, right? But we don't have the people back in the pews, even though we're relaxing. So it will take some time, I think, to hurdle that. I really appreciated the school district's input. We follow CCISD. That's our largest employer in League City. And so most important constituents of all, the children. So monitoring how COVID is done in the school system and how we recover out of that has been one of our important components. And then working with the small business, because that's where things are at. So I really appreciate this conference. I got a lot of good ideas. I might be talking to workforce folks some more. And I look forward to continuing conversation across the board. So we're League City, but quote up the road a little bit. We have a very important medical center there, so there's a collaboration back and forth here that I think needs a little bit more work on. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Want to close this out?
Thank you so much. First of all, let me say thank you to all of our panelists.
Wonderful panelists.
Thank each one of you who were here this morning to join in this discussion. We thank everybody who's online, who joined us live in this video streaming. So thank I-45. DJ, thank you to all your guys for helping us out this morning. Appreciate you. And as we close this out, we've talked about a lot of issues to address the problem that we all see. And it's kind of a supply and demand problem when you think about it. We need workers. Where do we find the supply? How do we fill that demand? But there's a lot of things, I was reading the paper this morning. There's a lot of things in our supply chains that are broken. There's a chlorine shortage, according to the paper. There's fixing to be a sugar shortage. There's this and there's that.
Truckers. I just heard about that from the
Yes.
Truckers Association this morning.
There's lots of different issues. But if we all pull together and work towards the solution and accomplishing some of the ideas that we've set forth here today, instead of sitting around just bemoaning the fact that these things exist, let's actually put it into action. So it's this morning is a call to action. It's not just a discussion, but it's a call to action. So we'll leave you with that thought, and thank you very much for being here.
Great to see you, Dr. Gibson.
You too.
We're gonna